Good morning, everyone, and a good morning it is. Today we have the honor of participating in passing legislation for the people to build back better, as I always say, with women, for the children. This occasion would not have been possible without the vision of our great president, President Biden. He has said that the infrastructure bill was very, very important, and we agree. But it was not the sum total of his vision for how we do build. And building back better meant building back with many more people participating, and with environmental justice, with home health care. The list goes on and on. One thing I'm particularly excited about is family medical leave, and that is a fight that we have always been engaged in for a long time. Steny and I and Clyburn, we were here when the family medical leave passed, unfunded, and now we have it funded. So for these and other reasons, as Mr. Hoyer said at the beginning of his remarks, we'll be telling our children and grandchildren that we were here this day. You were reminding me of St. Crispin's Day speech when you were saying that. And our distinguished whip, Mr. Clyburn, talked about the three legs of the stool, the rescue package, the BIF, and now this bill being the infrastructure of our future. And of course, our distinguished chair of the Ways and Means Committee, who held down the fort for such a long time, but including last night, Mr. Neal quoting Daniel Webster, and our responsibility to act. So for us, it's about not just about legislation, it's about values, and the values that this legislation represents for the people. With that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished Majority Leader, Mr. Hoyer.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, congratulations, Madam Speaker. This is an historic piece of legislation. You were its leader with, as you say, the vision of the President of the United States. This bill will speak for itself to millions and millions and millions and millions of Americans whose lives will be made more secure, more richer in the terms of quality of life, whose educational opportunities will be greater, and whose job opportunities will be greatly enhanced. And America's competitiveness in the world will be heightened for the 21st century. As the President said, this is a transformational piece of legislation. It's a big win for the people, for the average working men and women of America, for those who struggle every day and hope that somebody is on their side. Somebody is listening to their pain and their struggle and their challenge. This bill is an answer. This bill will make a difference in their lives. That's why this bill is so historic. Not for next year, the year after, but for decades to come. It will make America a better land, a land of greater opportunity, a land of the free, a land of the brave. I now yield to my distinguished colleague from South Carolina, who counted the votes precisely. Thank you, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader, Madam Speaker, and this great leadership team. Let me thank all of you for a great job well done. Last night when I spoke on this bill, I called it the third leg of a three-legged stool needed to balance, not just the stool, but balance people's lives. What are we doing for the people that we serve? What are we doing for their families? And what are we doing for the communities that live in? So when you look at the Rescue Act and you look at the infrastructure bill and this one, I think you can see that we have now proposed comprehensive approaches from the federal government to rescue these lives, save these communities, and do what is needed to be done for the future. I also talked last night about the fact that COVID-19 exposed some significant faults in our system that needed to be addressed. Faults in our healthcare system that need to be addressed. How do you get telehealth and telemedicine to the rural communities all over the state? That's what the infrastructure bill is all about. Faults in our healthcare system that in 12 states that did not expand Medicaid. We decided that the people living in those states are part of this great nation as well, and we addressed their plight with this legislation. I always talk about this being a great country, but the fact that we have not allowed this greatness to be accessible and affordable for all of our citizens, these 3 pieces of legislation accomplish that in a big way. And with that, I'd like to yield to our Assistant Speaker, Ms. Catherine Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Clyburn. What an incredible morning, what an incredible vote, what an incredible time for the American people to be seen and heard. As we head into Thanksgiving, I am so grateful for the leadership that is standing here with me, especially Mr. Clyburn, Steny Hoyer, and of course, our historic and iconic speaker. Her vision with President Biden of focusing and building on conversations with the American people, putting children and women first to make sure that we breathe life into those ideals that we talk about, liberty and justice for all. And with this bill, we are saying to the American family, we see you. We understand those issues around your kitchen table, and we are going to send help to you, whether it's through expanded childcare, universal pre-K, that we haven't been able to pass since the Nixon administration, saying that we are going to build 1 million new affordable housing units. We are going to be the custodians of this planet. And while we clean the water and air, we are also going to create millions of good jobs. This is the promise of the Build Back Better agenda. And with this momentous step, we say to the American people, we are meeting your historic challenge with historic progress. I am so grateful to this caucus and to President Biden for making this possible.
Thank you very much. Let me just say that you've heard me say it again and again. All of this would not be possible without the great work of our committees, members of the committee, and staffs of the committee, and our distinguished chairs. 3 of them are with us in terms of the substance of the legislation. Mr. Neal of Ways and Means, Mr. Pallone of Energy and Commerce, and Mr. Scott of, I should say, chairman of Education and Labor. But the person who facilitated this for us again and again was the chairman of the Rules Committee, Mr. McGovern. Thank you, Mr. McGovern, for bringing us to the floor again and again. And yesterday, in record time, however, good thing that happened. And then I'm honored to be here also with our leadership. This is legislation that creates millions of good-paying jobs, gives tax cuts to the middle class, lowers costs, especially health care cost and child care cost for the middle class, and is paid for 100%. And again, we're very excited about what it does for the children, for the families. And it's, again, if you're a mom, a dad, a family caregiver, or the rest, this bill's for you. If you care about the planet and how we pass it on to our children, as this bill's for you, whether it's about right now their health and the health and well-being, whether it's good-paying jobs for their family and green technology, good union jobs, if it's the security of our country by preventing and hoping to mitigate for conflicts that come from conflict over resources and habitat. It's a national security issue and, of course, a moral issue to pass the planet on in good shape to future generations. So with that, I'm honored to be here with them and with members of our leadership. Mr. Aguilar, I know that Distinguished Chairman Mr. Jeffries had a plane. Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. How many hours were you in the chair last night? Too many, but very well. Excuse me. And then Distinguished Chair of the DCCC, Mr. Maloney, and here we are. So I know our distinguished chairs will want to take all of your difficult policy questions, but why don't we begin? Yes, ma'am.
Madam Speaker, I want to ask you, after this week, obviously this is a momentous moment for the Democratic Party, but you also had to deal with the censure vote this week. You had to deal last night with Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's 8.5-hour speech. What do you feel like the tone and tenor of the House of Representatives is at this moment, and what can be done to try to bridge some of those gaps in trust?
Well, let me just say that I don't specifically agree with your first sentence saying a great day for the Democratic Party. Maybe it is. But it's a great day for our country. And that's why we are so thrilled about it. It's for the people. It should be bipartisan. It should be bipartisan. The fact that they would rather give tax cuts to the richest people at 83% of the benefits going to the top 1% without any pay for is a stark difference between what we do in this legislation. And I didn't even pay attention to the speech. I don't even listen to most of the speeches on the other side because they're not fraught with meaning or fact. So I don't have my computer get bothered with that. But the fact is that the censure, they could improve their behavior. They don't have to threaten to kill members of Congress or threaten the life of the President of the United States. So you say, what can we do to bring people together? Well, we can encourage everyone to honor the Rule 23 of the House, which is that you must bring credit to the House of Representatives. But with that, I'm going to yield to my colleagues for any answers they may have on the subject of your question. Mr. Neal, did you?
I never thought quoting Daniel Webster would have received such a reaction from the Republican leader last night. That seemed to be the theme that he repeatedly came back to. But if I could just emphasize just quickly, paid family leave, middle-class tax cuts, the child credit, ACA premium credits, we lower health care costs, negotiated drug prices, and we expand ACA. And with that, signing the president's signature on the infrastructure bill. This is quite a week for the American family.
Madam Speaker. How do you respond to Republicans today that say Democrats lied to the American public when they said this plan costs $0 when the CBO says it at least adds $160 billion to the debt?
Let's just not present what the Republicans say as any fact that you're predicating a question on. I mean, understand what's happening around here, okay? Mr. Because you know these figures.
So they hung their hats on the issue of the IRS. We believe, according to the IRS commissioner, a Republican appointed by the former president, who said, by the way, that there could be up to $1 trillion that's hanging out there. He said that. We didn't say it. We subscribed to the $400 billion mark, which not only that commissioner, but the former commissioners have all subscribed to as well. An investment in software for better modeling at the IRS, an investment in allowing auditors to upgrade their own skills. Your chances of being audited over the EITC are now greater than your chances of being audited if you're paid in dividends and capital gains. And the last point, because this is really important. If you are a working American, because of withholding taxes, we have north of 95% compliance in America. We should be proud of that. That means that people who get paid week to week with wages, they pay their share. The problem is in the upper echelons of the American economy now. Republican IRS commissioners and Democratic IRS commissioners, they all agree on that principle.
I understand that, and just a quick...
In the legislation, they charge for the investment in training the IRS and hiring more people, but they don't weigh in the upside of what you get from that in terms of increased collection of taxes. And also, it's a deterrent because people will know that now there are more people looking at the tax returns at that high end with their high-priced lawyers. As the chairman said very clearly, you're more likely to be investigated if you're about an EITC, said, but earned income tax credit. These are low-income people in our country don't have high-priced lawyers or phalanxes of them, and they get more audit than the wealthiest. Next question.
Madam Speaker, this was a huge vote today, but it won't be the last vote.
Yeah.
Are you confident you can keep the momentum going to actually get the final version of this bill to the president's desk?
Yes, but I'm going to yield to some of my colleagues on that, and I'll close with that as well, because this is huge. It is 90-some% of the bill was written together, House, Senate, White House. There were some differences at the end, and we'll deal with those as we go forward. What will happen is we have different committee system in the House than they do in the Senate, so this bill will now be reshaped to their committees. And at that point, we'll see what where we need to, shall we say, reconcile our differences. But at the end of the day, we will have a great bill. Mr. Pelosi, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact of the matter is that over the last few months, and particularly in the last few weeks, we have been working with the senators, not only Manchin and Sinema, but also with the chairs of the committees in the Senate. So, you know, I'll use two examples. One is on the drug pricing, right? You know, we've been basically drilling down and getting Sinema's input, getting the Schumer's input. And so I do believe that the drug pricing provision that you see is it. I mean, I don't know. I guess there could be some changes, but I don't think they're significant. And the fact that we have negotiated pricings and we have savings, as the CBO showed, it means that this is a provision that saves money and at the same time does a lot in terms of affordability for seniors and others. The same would be true for methane, right? Nancy and I and the group went to Glasgow for the climate conference, and they were touting international action on methane. So we have this very important provision with regard to methane emissions that was worked on with the senators and was also worked on with House members over the last few weeks. So I believe, you know, just using those two as an example, that this is pretty much it. I mean, there may be some additional changes, but, you know, in terms of paying for it, you know, and in terms of the actual substantive authorizing language, I think we're you know, pretty solid at this point, and there's no reason why this bill couldn't, you know, pretty much come back from the Senate with some minor changes, nothing major in my opinion.
Thank you. On the education and labor parts, we have pretty much agreed with our counterparts in the Senate. Child care, which will allow parents to go to work if you're in a low to moderate income situation. You really can't afford child care, so you can't afford to go to work. Pre-K, which is so valuable for future education, universal. The job training, the fact is that we don't have enough skilled workforce out there to do the work that's already there. The president signed a major infrastructure bill, and so if we expect that work to get done, we're going to have an upgraded workforce. Major investments in workforce development and higher education. And we worked with the Agriculture Committee, as the speaker has indicated. They don't necessarily line up. School lunches, school meals are part of the Agriculture Committee in the Senate, Ed and Labor in the House, and we've agreed to significantly increase access to school meals. So there's a lot in the bill, and it's pretty much agreed to on the Ed and Labor side.
Madam Speaker. I wanted to ask, first of all, you used to hold the record for the longest floor speech. How do you feel about that being broken, and do you plan to try to take that back?
No, I barely noticed, but that's not what we're here to talk about. This is about serious business here.
If I may ask a serious question, ma'am.
Oh, you have another
I do have a serious one. There will be changes, whether they're small or large. You've got a narrow majority.
Yeah,
Are you confident that that the biggest hurdles on this bill are in
Yeah.
your rearview mirror?
Yes. Let me just say, and I want to hear from some of our other colleagues, the this bill is monumental. It's historic. It's transformative. It's bigger than anything we've ever done. We have so much agreement within the bill. Should there be some disagreement, and by and large, we had the bill scrubbed so that we are technically, shall we say, eligible for the 51 vote in the Senate. That's what that was about. And then whatever comes out of the Senate, we'll be working together with them so that we have agreement when it comes back to the House. I have absolutely no doubt. The biggest hurdle was to get the bill there. The biggest challenge was to meet the vision of President Biden. Does anybody have anything they want to say on any of these? I don't know if you want to talk about being in the chair all night or whatever. One more question. Yes, ma'am.
This bill, many of your colleagues in the Democratic Party are counting on it to a run on it, given its contents. As far as you are concerned, upon passage, will you talk about whether or not you are going to run for re-election upon its passage or not?
This is an important meeting about serious subjects. If anybody has a serious question, I'll be happy to take one more. I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about building back better for women, for the people, for the children. Yes, ma'am.
But some of the provisions, such as immigration reform, such as paid leave, are possibly going to drop out in the Senate bill. Do you have plans to address some of these?
We have made our statement today. We have stood the test of the parliamentarians' privilege scrub. We are celebrating that. We are sending it over to the Senate, and we are ready to debate for our bill and have a big success. My colleagues, does anyone want to say about any of these things again? Am I here to talk about what happens?
I'll just say this. There's nothing unusual about the House working its will and the Senate working its, and that's why we have conferences. And I think that just because we have done something, let's just take, for instance, the salt tax. There are several senators that said they've got a version that they feel good about. I have not seen that version. But we think we got a good bill. They think they can make it better. And let them go at it. And they may make it better. And we will accept better. So I don't think that's anything for us to be all that concerned about. We've done what we think we can do. The Senate will do what it thinks it can do. And we'll come together on behalf of the American people and try to have a coordinated approach as we go off into the future. I don't fear.
Yeah. It's called the legislative process. And the House does not just write any bill that they think the Senate will pass. We find our common ground, but we have our own, shall we say, personality about things, and then we will reconcile whatever changes are needed as we ever strive to build back better. But it's a really cause for celebration for us now, and we're not getting bogged down in long speeches or people's careers or what happens if this doesn't happen. What we're talking about is what has happened, and it's a glorious, glorious, historic, transformative piece of legislation for the people, for women, for the children. Thank you all very much. And by the way, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. As our distinguished Assistant Speaker has said, we have a lot to be thankful for this Thanksgiving, and I want to express my gratitude for President Joe Biden. Thank you all very much.
The president called since this passed. Have you heard from him?
Yes, I've heard from him.
What did he have to say?
Congratulations to the members. Congratulations to the members. Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, members.